The year was 1922, and Albin Grau managed to pull off the one thing he had been thinking about since the time he was on the front lines during World War I. His vampire movie, Nosferatu, was finally out. But the repercussions of that movie were far graver than he had ever thought they'd be. Not only did it close Grau's very own production house, Prana Films, but it also led to Max Schreck, the actor of Count Orlok, being suspected of being a vampire. In today's video, we will be looking into that particular rumour and see how that has inspired people over the decades that followed. So join us in this deep dive into how far a rumour can go. The real Nosferatu and the legend of Max Schreck. Born on 6 September 1879, Friedrich Gustav Maximilian Schreck, also known as Max Schreck, lived in Berlin-Friedenau. A few years later, he moved with his parents to the district of Teltow. Ever since he was a young boy, Max Schreck was super enthusiastic about theatre. His father hated his enthusiasm, while his mother nurtured his growing passion by giving him money secretly. After his father's death, Max attended a drama school and then travelled all over the country with Demetrius Schutz, a dramatist and a poet. Max ended up getting his training at the State Theatre of Berlin and made his stage debut in Meseritz and Speyer. In 1921, he was hired by Prana Films for Nosferatu. As most horror fans already know, Nosferatu is the unauthorised rip-off of Dracula. Florence Stoker, Bram Stoker's widow and the owner of all his works, did not give Murnau permission to make this movie. However, Murnau did it anyway, and thought the best way to go about it would be to change a few names here and there. So, he changed Count Dracula's name to Count Orlok. The Harkers became the Hutters, and so on. Count Orlok. This character was created by Albin Grau, the mastermind behind this whole project. He was inspired to shoot this movie after he came across a farmer on the Serbian front lines who claimed his father was a vampire. Grau was inspired by Hugo Steiner Prague's paintings for The Golem Writer by Gustav Meyrink. These paintings, along with the very grotesque dead bodies he witnessed in the trenches, inspired Grau to design Orlok. You can see the references to the First World War throughout the entire character design of Count Orlok. Rats are always a menace to him. Do you know where else rats have caused a nuisance? The trenches during the First World War. We also see Orlok always covered in thick smoke. Now, is it just smoke? Or could it be a reference to the poison gas that was used rather rampantly all throughout the First World War? Once you have designed such a grotesque character, who clearly has deep sentimental value to you, you have to find someone amazing to play the character, right? Luckily for Grau, he managed to snag Max Schreck for the job. You might think I am joshing, but really, Grau could not have been luckier. Most of Max Schreck's life is a mystery. Stefan Eickhoff, who was the biographer and colleague of Schreck's, described him as a conscientious, loyal loner who had a talent for playing the grotesque with an offbeat sense of humour. That is why, when Max Schreck was offered this role and he accepted it, he bodied it completely. Now, I need you all to understand something. The movie came out in 1922. That was the first time anyone had ever seen a vampire on screen. Given Max Schreck was not super duper popular, some even thought he was the alter ego of Alfred Abel. So, with so much mystery surrounding one person, does it surprise anyone that people genuinely started believing that Max Schreck was a vampire himself? Not really, right? On top of that, in 1953, Edo Kiru made a huge mistake while criticising Nosferatu. He wrongfully assumed that the actor's name was never given out. So, in his review, he implied that maybe the character of Nosferatu was played by Nosferatu himself. This suggestion, no matter how ridiculous it seems for us in the year 2025, actually ended up giving us one of the most interesting movies of the early 2000s, Shadow of the Vampire. Directed by E. Elias Mahage and written by Stephen Katz, this is an indie gothic mystery film that stars William Dafoe and John Malkovich. Let me tell you guys about this overly dramatised mock documentary that pushed on the rumour of Max Schreck being a vampire. The premise of Shadow of the Vampire. The movie starts in 1921. F.W. Murnau, played by none other than John Malkovich, is trying to shoot Nosferatu. This is a big deal because Bram Stoker's wife, Florence Stoker, did not sign over the rights. While figuring out the details of the movie, Murnau refuses to tell his team about the actor who is playing Count Orlok. Gustav von Wangenheim, the other lead actor in the movie, explained to the whole group that the role of Count Orlok would be played by the theatre performer Max Schreck. However, Max Schreck is a method-to-character actor, so the only times people would get to meet him is when it is nighttime, and he will arrive in full makeup with no out-of-character conversation with the cast. It sounds weird, but then again, after Jared Leto's method acting in Suicide Squad, this sounds pretty normal, doesn't it? Anyway, the shooting starts, and one night, Murnau decides to take his entire cast and crew to Czechoslovakia for an on-location shoot. However, the remote inn where they were going to shoot had a lot of crucifixes, so Murnau started taking all of them off the wall, distressing the owner of the house. On the other hand, the cameraman Wolfgang Müller seems to fall under this strange hypnotic trance. While Gustav was going through the food supplies of the team that night, he found a bottle of blood, which simply did not make sense. Later that night, a ferret was delivered to Schreck, whom we have yet to see. The next day, Murnau and everyone else go to this ancient Slovak castle. This is the titular scene where we get to see Count Orlok for the first time. Schreck shows up at the set with his full makeup and costume on, shocking and impressing all of the co-workers. Later that day, when Albin Grau, the film's producer, asked Murnau how he got his hands on such a talented actor, he was shocked to learn that Murnau found Schreck in the castle itself. Strange things start happening at the set soon after. Wolfgang is found fainted in the tunnel Schreck had just gone into. During the dinner scene, Gustav ends up cutting his finger, and Schreck tries to drink his blood. The lights fail for a moment, and when they are back up again, Schreck is at Wolfgang's throat. Grau manages to send everyone to their rooms for the night, claiming the shoot is done for the day. However, Murnau knows that things are not looking as good. Wolfgang is left almost drained of blood, and with no other choice, he has to bring a new cameraman in. He also took a moment to scream at Schreck for attacking the crew members. He even threatened Schreck with harm if he does not start behaving himself. As you guys have guessed by now, Schreck is a vampire, so he finds the threats amusing. In the past few days, things have been a bit different. Murnau had to go back to Berlin to work on the film's finances. While he is away, Schreck tries to get close to Grau and Henrik Galeen, the screenwriter. He talks to the men about the sadness and the loneliness he feels as a vampire. He has been a vampire for so long that he barely remembers the mundane activities of his human life. The men ask him about how he became a vampire, assuming he is still in character. Schreck explains that it was because of a girl, but sadly, he does not remember much about her. Upset, Schreck snatches a bat out of the air and starts voraciously drinking its blood, impressing Grau and Galeen, who, utterly drunk on schnapps, think they are in the presence of a very talented actor. I personally would not think of it as talent per se, but okay. After Murnau returns from Berlin, the cast and crew go to the Heligoland island for the film. Murnau comes clean here in a laudanum-induced stupor and tells Fritz and Gray that Schreck is an actual vampire. Turns out, Murnau told him that he would get Greta, the lead actress, in exchange for his performance. Since all 5 of them are trapped on the island for the night, the men buckle up to finish shooting the movie. They set up for the scene where Schreck would feed on Greta. While Greta takes her mark on the bed, she notices Schreck's gleeful expression. While that was weird, that was not weird enough for a freak-out. However, when she noticed that Schreck did not cast a reflection in the mirror, she started panicking. Seeing no other choice, Fritz, Grau, and Murnau feed her some of the latter's laudanum, putting her to sleep. Schreck feeds on the heroine's blood, and the drug starts overtaking his system, putting him to sleep too. As he snores away the night, the 3 men decide to open the door to let the sunlight in, hoping that would destroy the vampire. However, when they try to open the metal door, they learn that the vampire has already broken the chains of that door, now effectively trapping all of them together. All the pulling and pushing created a ruckus, which woke up Schreck K, who was absolutely devastated at the betrayal. He attacked Fritz and Grau, finishing them in a matter of seconds. Murnau, in a moment of quick thinking, picked up the camera. He started filming and told Schreck to get back in his mark again for the last scene, as it was not shot right. Surprisingly, despite his maliciousness, Schreck returned to his position and leaned over Greta to feed on her. Right then, Galeen and the rest of the crew came in, lifting the door from the other side. Rays of sunshine flooded the room, destroying the vampire viscerally. Murnau, who has gone completely insane over his fill, M asks his crew members, who just found 2 colleagues dead on the floor and 1 colleague burst up in flames, for an end slate. The movie ends with Murnau calmly stopping the camera, claiming that they have it.
He cut the chain. We're trapped.
Max Schreck in Shadow of the Vampire. What does his character signify? Other than Willem Dafoe's amazing performance, this movie begs you to look a little deeper into the character portrayed here. I mean, yes, we all know that Max Schreck was never an actual vampire. However, the movie's Max Schreck is, and it highlights several key thought-provoking aspects that Bram Stoker tried to imply in his work. We have quite a few videos on this that you guys should definitely check out. But, in short, Bram Stoker added the views of transcendentalism in his novel Dracula. Transcendentalism is the thought process that states that the empirical and the physical world around you is made by your thoughts and not the societal norm. Now, why am I bringing it up? Well, if you look at the original Nosferatu, you will see that Murnau and Grau created a version of Dracula that is far more malicious than the original Dracula. This cemented Count Orlok as a monster in his own regard, which is a huge thing given he is a ripoff. However, in Shadow of the Vampire, Max Schreck is the vampire, and he brings up existentialism on the plate. Just think about it for a second. You are given the choice of immortality. You accept it. However, you forget to ask for eternal youth. So now, even though you can live forever and ever, your body ages, leaving you helpless, cranky, and unable to live out the life that you wanted to lead. You had dreams, goals, aspirations, could be money, could be career, could be love. But now, even though you have the time for that, you cannot do any of it because your body literally will not work with you. Max Schreck of Shadow of the Vampire is exactly like this. He embodies the role of someone who had it all and yet nothing. But these are not the only things that we see in this film. We see the price of obsession played out in front of our own eyes. Murnau knew that Schreck was a literal monster, and yet he welcomed that monster on the set because he wanted to make art. We could also look at Schreck's character as a representation of film ethics and the exploitation of the actors. Murnau literally uses Greta as a bargaining chip, which, let's be real, we have seen happen many times in real life too. There is an inherent power play at a place in the movie set because we have Schreck, this immortal being who can quite literally kill everyone, and Murnau, this obsessed guy who is willing to stop at nothing to create his work of art. Max Schreck's character in this movie is nothing but a dark reflection of the cinema culture that we, as cinephiles, must accept. The legacy of Shadow of the Vampire. There is no denying that the Nosferatu and Dracula debacle has been a hot topic of discussion for horror fans over the years. Dracula is one of the most iconic vampire characters ever created, and Nosferatu, while being a blatant rip-off of Dracula, somehow managed to steal the show. Hence, E. Elias Merhige's Shadow of the Vampire was a welcomed change for us horror movie fans. Merhige is the mastermind behind Begotten, where we literally see God cutting into his stomach, disemboweling himself with a razor. So whatever we were going to get, that would be pretty in your face. I believe that is why Merhige's proposition that Max Schreck was actually a vampire is absolutely believable. Merhige created a dark and gritty world with a lot of characters who are completely believable. Yes, Murnau is a self-obsessed, delusional director who would not care about the safety of anyone around him. But then again, can you tell me we have no director like this in Hollywood? I think not. John Malkovich went all out to ensure the camp was over the top in this film. Although, at first Nicolas Cage was chosen to play Count Orlok, in the end, the role went to William Dafoe, and I am so glad it did. Dafoe has always been a versatile actor, and seeing him play this absolutely diabolical, fascinating and yet menacing role to a T is just a chef's kiss. This movie is like a time capsule because no one knows how to make a film, so everyone is scampering around awkwardly while there is a literal vampire amongst them. The vampire also starts snacking on the crew members, all willy-nilly while simping after the leading lady to the unhinged director. This film may not be a gore fest that you are thinking about, but I promise you this is worth your time simply for the laughs, thoughts, and the grittiness it portrays. Marvelous Verdict Shadow of the Vampire first premiered at the 2000 Cannes Film Festival. It is a creative masterpiece with extremely over-the-top performances, while also having an aesthetic that makes it very suitable. If vampires are your favourite supernatural characters, this movie just might itch a scratch that you did not even have. Did you manage to watch this movie? If yes, do you enjoy the overacting? Or would you rather have a more grounded vampire flick? Let us know in the comments. And until I see you all next time, bye.